Hi everybody, and welcome to part 2 of the deck railing. I was hopeful everything had fit into one video, but it was just going to be too long, so I had to trim it down a little bit. We're actually in the middle of September here, and we need to get a wrap on this thing. Hi everybody, I'm Jim Deerdorf, and this is Detroit DIY. Let's get started. I've got this one cut and in place, and the 45 looks good. Sometimes when you set these up here, just because your posts are all plumb doesn't mean that they're all perfectly in line with each other, and you may find you have a gap here. And if you do have a gap at one side or at the other side, just kind of mark it. You know, if there's an 1/8 inch gap, mark it up here at an 1/8 inch, draw your line and recut it a little off 45 so that you get a nice tight fit. So this one's ready to go. I'm going to get it installed, and I'm going to go ahead and finish all this top railing around, and then we will come back for the bottom railing. I've finished all the top railing and getting ready to install the first piece of the bottom railing. And as you can see, I've got a few seams here. They turned out okay. I'm not disappointed in them. Anywhere where there wasn't a seam on top and I could utilize some of my scrap, I put in 2 pieces underneath instead of just one. Something like this right here. You can see the seam, that's 2 pieces. The seam is right here. The top rail is 1 piece, so I'm okay with that. I'm happy with everything, and I've got my bottom rail cut, set in place, and I'm getting ready to screw it in. What I've done is cut 2 pieces of 2x4 at 4 inches. I was thinking about just turning them on their side and going 3.5, but we get a ton of leaves that fall here, and I'm going to need to be able to get them out from underneath this railing. So I'm going to go the 4, and we're going to get some screws in this, and I'll show you how it's done. So what I'm going to do first is run a screw in right here, toenail the screw in right from the top. And unfortunately, yes, in the spring this first section of guard railing is going to have to come down, or at least part of it, so that I can get this wood out and get it replaced. But that's okay. I'll be able to get my final on this deck, and that'll be one thing out of the way. And then I'm just going to put 1 screw down here at the bottom, same way. Just like that. That's plenty good, not going anywhere. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Go ahead and knock out the rest of the bottom of this, and then we're going to get on with some more railing. All the bottom railing is installed, and I am ready to move on to the stairs. I'm not going to put any balusters in until I finish all the top and bottom railings on the stairs and the walkway. I want to show you a quick cheat here for getting the angle to cut your wood at, and that's just merely bring your saw over to the post and set it up just like that. So now when I cut the top of this board up here, right here, it'll be flush with this board, and that'll be the end of this one. I'm going to get that cut right now. I've got my angle cut here, and it's about 1/2 degree off, but I'm not going to worry about it. But I did see a potential issue, and I ran a string down my post just to make sure. And as you can see, this railing post is holding me out slightly. Of course, this post right here is way out of alignment, but I can pull that in, that's no big deal. But the string is quite a ways underneath my handrail when it's up against here, so I'm going to have to cut me a little notch out right here to take care of that. I've got my notch cut out, and I'm really happy with my string line. Everything's looking nice and straight. I have to pull some of these posts over and get them better. I have the second board cut and one screw holding it in place down there. and then I screwed on a little scrap piece of wood just to hold it together right here where the seam is. No big deal. And I'm probably going to go ahead and cut the piece that I need for under here on the angle and up there, so that I can get that ready to go underneath of here for my balusters to mount to. And then once I get that in, I'll squeeze these posts into place. I want to get this seam rigid. I've got this brace cut down here and I've got it clamped in, a couple screws in it, and we're going to get that screwed in place the rest of the way right here in a second and get those posts pulled straight. Before I took the angle out of my saw to make those cuts, I went ahead and cut this railing also, and I just wanted to talk about this for 1 second, because if I were to line this post up exactly right here, it would be higher than this board. By sliding it down a little bit and just kind of setting this board in place as a little bit of a guide, I've got the height correct. Now the angle is not correct, and that's because the walkway steps out 3.5 inches starting at that post to compensate for those posts. So there will have to be an angle cut there, and then the angle starts at this post, so I will have to cut an angle here. So let's get this screwed in. It's getting a little bit late in the day here. Pretty happy with my progress. I'd like to have gotten just a little more, but I think I'm going to get this done in the time that I have. I'm going to put 2 toenails right through here. And I did screw my block on the back side to hold this in place while I was doing that. And I'll have to say, this is the 3rd different type of screw that I've used. These actually come from the Do It Best hardware store, and they're not really bad screws. So what I want to do now is get this post pulled out where it needs to be, and then I can get some screws in this top rail and get it all back together, get it all locked into place. So I'm just going to use my clamp, kind of squeeze this over, push it, or I put a screw in here temporary just to hold it. I got to take that out first. So I didn't really pull this post where it needs to be. I moved this 2x4 over and lined it up. I'm going to go ahead and put the screw in, and I'm going to put a couple more screws in. Just to lock it into place. Now I'm going to come up here and clamp this board over if I can. Wants to be stubborn. Might have to get a screw started and pull on it a little bit. Pull on it quite a bit. Going to get another screw ran into this. Now what I need to do is pull it out to here. I think the clamp should do that for me. pretty close. I'm going to get a screw started. I'd like to get just a little more out of that. I think I can pull it over there. Doggone close. Now we look pretty good the rest of the way. I'm just going to go ahead and put some screws in through the rest of the way. Pull this out. I've got all the screws in this, and as you can see, it's pretty straight. It's got a little kick in it down there where the post was moved over the worst, but it's not bad. So I've got these 4 screws in each post and a series of screws through the top here, holding my under brace in place. So I need to get these 2 cut and in, and then I'm going to start working on this other side. I'm going to do the exact same thing for this seam right here, and once I get that in, we will come back and highlight the bottom part, and then we'll also highlight the rest of this railing going in. And I'd like to leave time in this video to show you what I'm going to do around this tree. It's a new day, and it's a beautiful day. The sun's out. It's a little bit chilly, 55 degrees or something like that, but that's okay. I'm getting ready to install this bottom rail for the stairs, and I just wanted to show you some tips and tricks how to keep this square while you're putting it together, and to keep it where it's the same all the way down. Pretty important. You don't want it to look all funky, so let's get a look at this. So I've cut this at the same angle as the top rail up here, and I've got this little piece of cut off that I'm just kind of using as a guide to slide in there and help me out a little bit. So I've decided what I want is a 13 1/4 inch space between the top and the bottom rail. So I've cut this 2x4 at 13 1/4 inches. So the angle looks nice, it's tight, which is good. So I've come down here and I've clamped this in place. I put my little blocks on here to kind of hold everything, and we're just going to slide this in, and it is nice and snug. So then at that point in time, I've already cut this, but I was hopeful that I cut it a little long, and I did, like by the skin of my teeth. So now what I want to do is just come back here with a pencil and scribe a line, and that'll give me my angle to cut it on. And I'll continue doing that all the way down, and we'll get these on. Also, what I want to point out is right now is a good time to scribe a line here while this board is overhanging. And I just did that with my square. I set it up on here, laid it up tight, scribed the line. So now I know where my next board is going to start, coming down at least the top of it, and that's a good reference. I've got my top and bottom railings all done. Sorry about the lawnmower. Part of the problems of living on a lake, sound travels really good. I am working on around the tree. Since I put that walkway around that tree, I've been running through my head how I'm going to do the railing for it, and I think I've got it resolved, and I'll show you what we got. So first of all, we'll take a look down the stairs. Everything's all done. I'm ready to get my balusters in, and here's what I've got going on around the tree. So I've cut these with my circular saw the best I could to 22.5 degrees. They're all just sitting here right now. So I'm going to pull them out, I'm going to clamp them, and I'm going to just screw them together. 2 screws here and 2 screws on the other side. And this one will go up here at the top of the rail. And I believe I'm going to leave this one right down here like a curb on the bottom of the deck. And then I'm going to put my balusters in between the two of them. So I'm going to get these screwed together and we'll see what we got going on. I've got them screwed together and they're just sitting here. I got some pieces clamped on just to kind of hold it in place right there, and a baluster right here, and the same thing over here. So I'm pretty happy with what I got. I don't mind it being down there like a little curb on the deck floor, and I will just frame it out with balusters. So I'm going to put some screws in there and go get myself something to eat. I'm pretty hungry. Skipped lunch today. It's been a long day, so I'm going to reward myself. I'm ready to install my balusters. Are they balusters or are they spindles? Let's talk about that for a second. From the people that I learned from, the old timers, a spindle was round and a baluster was square. However, technically, that's not how it works. So when you are mounting the bottom of it to a rail, such as this, it then technically becomes a spindle. However, if you are mounting it to the surface of the deck into here, then it becomes a baluster. So they're basically the same thing, no real difference. I was always told that they're balusters, learn them to be balusters, and balusters are square and spindles are round. That's kind of how I was taught. So there's no real right or wrong. They're so close to being the same thing that it's ridiculous. So I've got all my spacing calculated, and I did that by going online and finding a spindle baluster calculator. I put in my dimensions, I put in the thickness of my spindle, and it gives me my on-center measurements and my spacing. So then what I did was I just came out and made me a spacer block for each section if they varied a little bit, and some of them did. So I have a spacer block for each section, and the spacer block I will just use here per se, and then, you know, move it over and do it again. Clamp them, and I'm going to take my time to do these. So I'm going to get started right now. I have two spacers clamped on, and I have my baluster right here. So I'm just going to hold it up there into place, and I'm good at the bottom, and I'm just going to take my level and check it, and it is perfect. So I'm going to screw these from the other side through. I would put the screw through from this side, but they like to split in doing that, so I'm going to do it from the other side and keep them from splitting. And what I want to do is just check it over and see if there's anything ugly. This one has a knot right here that I want to hide, if at all possible, or hide it the best that I can. So I think I'm actually going to put that to the inside here, something just like that. I'm going to put one screw in the top and one screw in the bottom, and that should be plenty to hold this forever. Now I'm just going to move my spacers over. And keep going. I've finished up the balusters on the walkway. We'll show you that in a minute. And then I'm going to get started on the stairs now. So before we wrap this video, I'm just going to give you a couple pointers on the stairs. There is also a calculator online that you can find for the baluster spacing on stairs, because it's a little different and maybe a little bit more tricky. I don't really think so, but it may be for some people. So the calculator is there, it's easy to use, and it'll help you get your spacings figured out. I'll show you the stairs first and then the completed walkway. So what you want to do is, with the cutoff from the railing that you built, that you've been saving and holding on to because you know you're going to need that angle multiple times and it's a nice template, go ahead and lay it on here and cut your baluster to that angle. Then after you get the top angle cut, you can come put it in place and scribe the bottom angle. Then you clamp your blocks into place with the correct spacing, butted right up against the railing post. I have a little gap in that one, I'll have to fix that. And you have to be careful of that too. And put your level on these periodically as you go, every 2 or 3, so that you can correct any unlevel issues. I do that by clamping, putting it in there, screwing it at the top, and then bumping the bottom out a little bit, or in if necessary. Take that block out of the way to get it back level. But we've got our angle cut there. Then at the bottom, just scribe it and cut your angle there. And away you go. Then I'll use this as a template to cut multiple. So that is the only difference between the standard and the stairs. So let's take a look at the railing itself. So the grand view of things, this is what I have completed, including around the tree and up front, and we'll take a look at that. I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out around the tree. We'll get a better look at that in a second. Sorry for everything being shaky. Here's what we got at the front. And now the tree. And I really like how this turned out. I wish there was just maybe a little more room right here, but we're going to be all right. I'm really happy with that. I think that looks pretty cool. I like the look from the inside. Just not a bad look at all. And I really couldn't be happier. Alright guys, I'm here on the stairs and I'm trying to get these balusters installed, and I went to the calculator online and used that to get my spacing, but it just was not working out for me. So I want to show you what I did and how I'm getting past this, and it'll help you also get yours. Anytime that I get my spacing online, I cut me a block of that size spacing, and then I have me a little cutoff of my baluster so that I can check it. So I'll just run underneath the rail and I'll put my block up against my 4x4 post. I'll put my baluster and then I'll just walk it down and see what gap I end up with at the end. Sometimes the calculator will leave you a little short. If it's a 1/4 of an inch short, who cares? You're never going to see it when the railing's finished. And just so long as it's under 4 inches, you're going to pass inspection with no problem. So I've kind of done the same thing here with these stairs because the calculations just weren't working out. Also, I just want to let you know that I cut multiple blocks before I started. This one's 3 3/4, this one's 4 inch, this one's 3 1/2. I've got 3 3/4, 3 7/8, everything from 3 to 4 inches. Even 7/16, 3 7/16, so on and so forth. I used a 2x4, 8-foot 2x4, and just cut a bunch of these blocks for spacers, just in case the calculations that I got online did not work out. I knew that they would get me close and I could figure out the rest of the way with these. Let's look at these stairs. Alright guys, so here's what we've got. So even when I get my spacings, I like to test them, and like I say, I do that by placing my spacer tight against my 4x4 and using my spindle. Let me see here, there you go. Sorry about the boat, but that's what happens on a lake. So then, you know, you don't have to be perfect. Slide your spacer back up against your spindle, move it to the other side, and just work your way down through. Now this 2x4 that I put on here is level, and it will be running 90 degrees to the spindles, so this is an accurate spacing for these spindles, balusters. So I'm just going to keep rolling down. Now when I did this with the spacing that I got online, it didn't work. When I got to the end, I had like an inch left. That's not what you want. So as you can see, this is going to work out perfect. So I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe that online it told me to use 3 and 15s, I don't remember, but 3 3/4 is going to work out just fine. So sometimes it gets aggravating. Just take your time, keep your patience. I started out with a 4, and then I went to a 3 3/4, and bingo, there it was. Sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes you have to skip through a few of them. And just remember to always count the number of balusters, so that if you go to like a 3-inch, now all of a sudden maybe it's trying to add an additional baluster on you, and then you're thinking that the calculations just aren't coming out right. So make sure that you stick with the same number through each measurement. Count them as you go so that you know it's the same, and you should be able to hit it and work out for you. Alright guys, I'm gonna get these on. Alright guys, we're gonna get a couple of these on, and then we're gonna wrap this video. So what I like to do, I've got my spacer blocks clamped into place, top and bottom, and then I just kind of slide it up in here. I don't mark my screws every time. I've never marked them. I just kind of hold it there, give it an eyeball where I want it. I'll set this back out for a second, get it started. Make sure the drill's going the right direction, the driver. Hold it back up in there and sink it in. Same thing down here at the bottom. Now I'm going to move my spacers. I like to keep them pointing out so they don't poke me in the face. Sometimes they're a little tough to get out. You want to have a good look when you put this one in, and make sure that it's flush against the side of this as you move down. Then we're going to do the same thing for the next one. Alright guys, I'm going to keep going, and I think we're going to put a wrap on this thing for this time, and we'll see you soon. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed yourself, click on one of those 2 videos right there. And I'd like to give a special thanks to Tony Iconelli and Brett Wimmer, because none of this could happen without them.